How many times have you found yourself pushing with all your strength against a situation that simply refused to flow? How many times have you fought against the current, trying to force open a door that seemed locked, while a window was quietly opening right beside you? And how many times have you wondered why life feels so hard, so full of obstacles, when you see other people walking with a lightness you can't seem to understand? The truth is, most of us were raised to believe that everything in life needs to be conquered through brute force, that success equals constant struggle, that if we're not sweating, suffering, forcing our way through, then we're not doing enough. But what if I told you there's a completely different way to navigate through life? Joseph Campbell, the great scholar of mythology and the hero's journey, discovered something revolutionary when he analyzed thousands of stories throughout human history. He realized that in every great journey, there's a moment where the hero must stop forcing and start trusting, a moment where struggle gives way to flow, where brute force transforms into wisdom. Because here's the paradox that Campbell understood. The harder you grip, the more life slips through your fingers. The more you force, the more resistance you create. It's like trying to catch water with a clenched fist. If what I'm describing resonates with you, if you felt this constant battle against life's flow, you're not alone. Actually, let me ask you a favor. If this video is making sense to you so far, hit that like button to help me bring this reflection to more people who need to hear this message. And subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this, content that goes beyond the surface and actually makes you think differently about life. Now tell me in the comments, does this happen to you too? Do you find yourself forcing situations instead of letting them unfold? Because I'm sure you're not the only one. And when we share these experiences, we realize it's all part of the human process. Campbell called this phenomenon following your bliss, but it's been completely misunderstood by our achievement-obsessed culture. People think it means just doing whatever feels good in the moment. But that's not it at all. Following your bliss means aligning yourself with the deeper current of your life instead of swimming against it. Think about a river. When you're in a canoe and you're trying to paddle upstream, every stroke is exhausting. You're fighting the water, your muscles are burning, and you're barely making any progress. But the moment you turn that canoe around and start flowing with the current, suddenly everything becomes effortless. The same river that was your enemy becomes your ally. This is exactly what happens when you stop forcing your way through life. The very forces that seem to be working against you start working with you. But here's where it gets interesting, and where most people get it wrong. They think this means being passive. They think it means just sitting back and waiting for things to happen. Campbell knew better. He understood that there's a difference between forcing and focused action. There's a difference between pushing against the flow and skillfully navigating within it. The river metaphor continues. Even when you're flowing with the current, you still need to steer. You still need to read the water, avoid the rocks, choose your path. But you're working with the natural forces, not against them. So what does this look like in real life? It starts with recognizing the difference between inspired action and desperate action. Inspired action feels natural, even when it's challenging. It feels like you're being pulled forward by something larger than yourself. Desperate action feels forced, frantic, like you're pushing against a wall that won't budge. You know that feeling when you're trying to remember a word, and the harder you think about it, the more it escapes you. But the moment you relax and stop forcing it, the word just appears. Life works the same way. The more you grasp and control and force, the more elusive your goals become. But when you align yourself with your deeper purpose, when you follow what Campbell called your authentic path, opportunities start appearing everywhere. But let's be honest about something. Our culture makes this incredibly difficult. We're surrounded by messages that tell us if we're not hustling 24/7, if we're not grinding and forcing our way to success, then we're lazy, we're failing, we're not enough. This programming runs deep, and it creates a constant anxiety that we should be doing more, pushing harder, forcing faster results. Campbell saw through this illusion. He understood that this kind of forcing comes from fear, not from strength. It comes from a fundamental distrust in life itself. When you're constantly forcing, what you're really saying is, I don't trust that life will support me unless I make it happen through pure willpower. But here's what Campbell discovered in all those mythological stories. The universe is actually conspiring to help you, but only when you're aligned with your authentic path. Only when you're following what genuinely calls to you, not what you think should call to you. This doesn't mean everything becomes easy. Campbell never promised that. The hero's journey is still a journey, with challenges and trials and moments of doubt. But there's a fundamental difference between the challenges that come from being on your authentic path versus the resistance that comes from forcing the wrong path. When you're on your true path, obstacles become teachers instead of enemies. Setbacks become course corrections instead of failures. Delays become preparation instead of punishment. The challenge is still real, but it has a different quality. It feels like you're being strengthened and prepared for something, not just randomly beaten down. Think about the people you know who seem to live with this flow. They're not necessarily more talented or more privileged, but they have this quality of being in the right place at the right time. Opportunities seem to find them, doors open just when they need them to open. Connections happen naturally. Resources appear when needed. This isn't luck. This isn't privilege. This is alignment. This is what happens when someone stops forcing their agenda on life and starts participating in life's deeper agenda for them. But how do you make this shift? How do you move from forcing to flowing? Campbell gave us clues throughout his work, but it starts with one simple practice: paying attention to what energizes you versus what drains you. When you're forcing something, you'll notice that even small actions in that direction feel exhausting. You have to talk yourself into it. You have to use willpower to push through. You feel depleted afterward, not fulfilled. But when you're aligned with your authentic path, even challenging actions in that direction feel energizing. You find yourself naturally drawn to take the next step. You lose track of time when you're engaged in it. You feel more alive afterward, not depleted. This is your inner compass. This is how you distinguish between forcing and flowing. Your body knows the difference, even when your mind doesn't. The second key is learning to recognize what Campbell called helpful accidents. When you're forcing, coincidences work against you. Traffic jams when you're already late. Technology breaking down at the worst moment. People canceling at the last minute. But when you're in flow, coincidences work for you. You meet exactly the right person at exactly the right time. Information comes to you just when you need it. Delays that initially seem frustrating turn out to save you from bigger problems. Start paying attention to these patterns in your own life. When do helpful accidents happen? When do things seem to work against you? You'll start to see a clear correlation with whether you're forcing or flowing. The third element is what Campbell called the call. In every hero's journey, there's a moment when the hero receives a call to adventure. But here's what most people miss. The call usually comes disguised as something you don't think you're ready for. Something that feels too big, too uncertain, too risky. And this is where most of us make the mistake. We wait until we feel ready. We wait until we have all the answers, all the resources, all the guarantees. But Campbell understood that readiness isn't a prerequisite for the call. The call creates readiness. The path creates the walker. When you stop forcing your own timeline and start responding to life's invitations, even the scary ones, even the uncertain ones, that's when the magic happens. That's when you discover that you have resources you didn't know you had, support you didn't know existed, strength you never had to access before. But here's the crucial part, and this is where many people get stuck. Following the call doesn't mean abandoning all responsibility and running away to join the circus. Campbell wasn't advocating for irresponsible behavior. He was advocating for authentic behavior. Sometimes the call is to leave a job that's killing your soul, even if it means financial uncertainty for a while. Sometimes the call is to stay in that job, but change how you approach it. Sometimes the call is to have a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Sometimes it's to finally write that book, start that business, move to that place that keeps calling your name. The call is different for everyone, but it has certain qualities. It feels both exciting and terrifying. It feels important, even if you can't explain why. It keeps coming back even when you try to ignore it. And it usually involves some kind of growth, some kind of expansion beyond your current comfort zone. When you start responding to these calls instead of forcing your own agenda, You enter what Campbell called the zone of adventure. This is where opportunities start appearing because you're no longer trying to control everything. You're participating in something larger than your individual will. But let's talk about what happens when you first make this shift, because it's not always smooth sailing. When you stop forcing, there's often a period that feels like nothing is happening. You're not pushing anymore, but the flow hasn't kicked in yet. This is what Campbell called the belly of the whale, the dark night of the soul. This is where most people panic and go back to forcing. They interpret this pause as failure, as proof that the whole idea of flow is just wishful thinking. But Campbell knew better. He understood that this pause is actually preparation. It's the universe getting ready to support you in a new way. Think of it like a trapeze artist. There's that moment when you've let go of one bar but haven't caught the next one yet. You're flying through space with no support. This is terrifying, but it's also the only way to get to the other side. If you try to hold on to the old bar while reaching for the new one, you'll never make it across. The same thing happens when you stop forcing. There's a moment of suspension, of not knowing, of apparent emptiness. But this isn't failure. This is transformation. This is your life reorganizing itself around your new way of being. During this time, the most important thing you can do is stay present. Don't panic and go back to forcing. Don't try to figure everything out with your mind. Just be with the uncertainty. Be with the not knowing. Be with the pause. Campbell called this sitting in the fire. It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary, because what's happening during this time is that you're being prepared for opportunities that don't exist yet. You're developing capacities you'll need for a path you can't yet see, and then, usually when you least expect it, things start moving again. But they move differently than before. Instead of you pushing against closed doors start opening in front of you. Instead of you chasing opportunities start finding you. Instead of having to convince people to support you, the right people start showing up naturally. This is when you realize that Campbell was right. The universe really is more intelligent than your individual planning mind. When you align yourself with the deeper current of your life, when you stop forcing and start flowing, you discover that there's an intelligence at work that's far more sophisticated than anything you could have orchestrated on your own. People start saying you're lucky. They don't understand that luck has nothing to do with it. You've simply learned to dance with life instead of wrestling with it. You've learned to read the signs, to follow the energy, to trust the process. But here's something important that Campbell emphasized. This doesn't mean you become passive. Following your bliss requires tremendous courage. It requires saying no to things that look good but don't feel right. It requires disappointing people sometimes. It requires tolerating uncertainty and criticism and the discomfort of not fitting into other people's expectations. In many ways, following your authentic path is harder than forcing, at least initially. Forcing is familiar. We know how to suffer. We know how to struggle. We know how to push through resistance. What we don't know is how to trust, how to surrender, how to allow life to support us. This is why Campbell called it the hero's journey. It takes a hero's courage to let go of control. It takes a hero's faith to believe that there's wisdom at work beyond your individual understanding. It takes a hero's persistence to keep following your bliss even when others don't understand, even when results don't come immediately, even when you can't see the whole path ahead. But here's what every hero discovers. The moment you truly commit to your authentic path, the moment you stop forcing and start flowing, the whole universe conspires to help you, not because you're special, but because you've finally aligned yourself with the way things actually work. Campbell spent his life studying the stories that have guided humanity for thousands of years, and in every single one, this same pattern emerges. The hero who learns to trust the deeper current of life always finds treasure that couldn't be found through forcing. So where does this leave you? Right here, right now, with a choice. You can keep forcing your way through life, pushing against closed doors, exhausting yourself trying to make things happen through sheer willpower. Or you can take Campbell's invitation seriously. You can start paying attention to what energizes you instead of what drains you. You can start responding to life's invitations instead of forcing your own timeline. You can start trusting that there's an intelligence at work that knows things your planning mind doesn't know. This doesn't mean abandoning your goals or becoming irresponsible. It means pursuing your goals in partnership with life instead of in opposition to it. It means allowing your path to be more beautiful and mysterious and surprising than anything you could have planned. Campbell discovered that when you follow your bliss, when you stop forcing and start flowing, you don't just achieve your goals. You discover goals you didn't know you had. You become a person you didn't know you could become. You find a life that's richer and more meaningful than anything you could have forced into existence. The opportunities are there waiting for you, but they can't appear while you're busy forcing. They can only appear in the space that opens up when you finally let go, when you finally trust, when you finally align yourself with the deeper current of your own life. Joseph Campbell spent his entire career showing us that this isn't just philosophy. This isn't just wishful thinking. This is how life actually works when you're brave enough to let it work through you instead of against you. And remember, if this conversation sparked something in you, if it made you think differently about your own approach to life, share in the comments what resonated most. Was it the river metaphor? The idea of helpful accidents? The courage it takes to trust? I read every comment, and your insights helped me create even more meaningful content for our community. The conversation doesn't end here. It's just beginning.